What's going on? This is Lewis Angel with AE Mind, and I have with us today the one and only, the first ever American World Memory Champ, my teammate, Team USA out there. We have Alex Mullen with us. What's going on, Alex? How's it going?
Hey Lewis, how you doing? I'm doing great. Doing good.
Awesome,
Yeah.
man. Thanks a lot for joining me. This first interview for 2016, man. I'm so glad that you were able to hop on here, short notice, and be with us for this interview so we can
Yeah.
help out
Yeah, no,
others out there.
happy to do it. Happy to talk to you.
Awesome, man. So, we'll get into the World Memory Competition, how that was for you, and, we'll talk about your background and why you even got into this field. But first of all, man, congratulations are in order. Let me just run down a few of the top achievements. You said so many at the World Memory Competition, but just so that people know, like, what you did. Man, you broke two world records and set one of those. You broke the world record in cards, which was held by Ben Pridmore, a previous world memory champion, for the longest time. You broke his world record, but then it was set by Bin Bin from China, right?
It
28 cards, he said
wasn't
31. You did over 3,000 digits in long numbers.
With 3,029 ball score, the new world record by Alex Mullen. So I hand you now over to...
So you said that one's an official world record, Guinness World Record. So that's awesome to be there and just witness that was pretty amazing. And then cards. Just recently, you did really well in cards out there at the World Memory Competition in China. But just recently for the Extreme Memory Tournament, you did what, 17 seconds? Is that correct? 17:04?
Yeah, I did it was like 17.08, which is the best that I've ever done. And it's crazy because like I was literally just about to, I wasn't even sure if I was going to do an attempt because but luckily I'm qualified already from being in the top 8 last year, and I was just like about to run out of the house. I was like, you know what, I'll just do one quick run just for the hell of it. And I wasn't, I was sort of out of practice. I hadn't really been training for like the 3 weeks after the World Championship, and I just like had been training for a few days before that, and I don't know what happened, but it felt really good, and it just worked out perfectly. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, Simon Kernion holds the physical cards record of just a little over 20 seconds, and you broke that. It was a digital version. It was an official competition, but it was still awesome, man. Just to see that score up there, I was like, man. And then Lance did 19, but you guys are killing it. So those are a few of the top things that we did. And then for Team USA, you helped Team USA get the first ever, silver trophy at the competition. So that was awesome. So quick rundown of the top stats. So let's get right into the World Memory Competition, man. That was your first ever. There have been guys that have been competing in this competition, 10 plus years, right? You had Simon, you had Johannes, the top Germans and top in the entire world, and they've held these positions for a long time. And then Marwin comes and he was first place throughout the entire competition. And literally the last event, you won by. I mean, you earned everything. You set top scores in every event. But then the last event, I was there for cards. Just by seconds, you beat Marwin.
Wow! Congratulations! Thank you. Second. Did you see what? You know what Marvin did?
And took over that first place position. Talk about that experience. How was it going into it and just being around all these top memory guys and you winning the competition? How was all that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It's still kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, but definitely going in, I was definitely not expecting to win. I was like, okay, maybe best case scenario, I'll get like third or something like that.
Right.
But I knew that to do even kind of contend for the top, I'd have to get like, my best scores in every event.
Yeah.
And luckily that's what happened. I don't know how, like, it's not, I'm not always doing my best at competitions. I was sure I was going to flub at least two or, a couple of events.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't really happen. And it was just, it just like kept, going well. And I was just, I couldn't have been happier about it. And then as far like in terms of like trying to stay up with Marwin, by the time somewhere during the second day, I was just kind of like, up to that point, I hadn't really thought about winning. And then by that point I was like, okay, maybe I have a chance to get it right. And then, so I knew I just kind of had to stay within a few points within a few hundred points rather of him. And because I knew that, speed cards is probably one of my best events. And it's really not one of his best events compared to, his binary and abstract are just like off the charts. He's not quite as good, relatively speaking, with speed cards.
Right.
So I knew I could maybe make up some ground there.
And just sorry to interrupt, but side note, his not good is still like incredibly good compared to everybody else out there.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go on.
But yeah, and then before the last one, I was like, so luckily when I was doing the spoken numbers, I did like basically as good as I could have hoped for. I was like so sure that I was just gonna screw it all up on spoken, and that was gonna be like the death of me.
Yeah.
But on the third one, I ended up getting 212, which is like, I mean, it's not like my personal best, but I'm not very consistent with spoken. So the fact that I got it I was just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
And then I was so nervous after that going into speed cards, because I was just like, I could do it, but I could also screw it up because it's such a risky event,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was just the whole pretty much start to finish, especially toward the end, was just kind of crazy. I mean, even, it's been basically a crazy year. 2015 was a crazy year because I did for the first time get to meet lots of these guys, like you mentioned, Simon, Johannes,
right.
People I had been kind of idolizing, basically, sort of like memory gods to me. I got to meet them at the XMT, which was really crazy. And then to just to even like be in the same running with them at the XMT was already kind of blowing my mind. And then to be able to do it at the World Championship, it was just, it's pretty surreal.
That's awesome, man. And you did extremely well, man. So, you ended up taking over by seconds. You beat Marwin, and then you got the gold.
I got it by basically 1.5 seconds. So I couldn't help but doing the calculation afterwards. Like if I had gotten 23 seconds instead of 21.5, I would have lost by 1 point.
Oh man.
So it was tight.
Listen, I've been competing for a few years now. This was 2015 was the year that I actually took this seriously. For the most part, I went to a bunch of competitions, but
you went all over the place, man.
Yeah, I went everywhere. I was able to hang out with all these top guys.
I haven't actually congratulated you for the superhuman thing. That's so awesome, man.
Oh, thanks, man. You better be on the next one, man. Get the superhuman championship.
Cool.
Then. But I've done all these. But as a memory athlete, as someone that has been doing this and has been around these people, and someone that is also just a fan of the sport, man, just to watch you. And I was a teammate, so obviously I was rooting for you. But just as a fan of the sport, I was like, man, this guy is doing some incredible things out there. So I know what it takes to train for these types of competitions, but nowhere near your level, because I'm doing all these other things as well, a business and all these other ventures that I'm embarking on. But but then also at the same time, you're busy. You have your social life. You just got married, so congratulations on that as well. And you're also a student. So talk about the training. What went into this run at the World Memory Competition, the months leading up to this? What was your training schedule like? What were you doing? How were you training for the different events and disciplines?
Yeah, sure. So to be honest, I don't really feel like I train very much, especially relative to a lot of guys.
Yeah.
My big thing is I just try to be as consistent as possible. So I really try to follow I'm not doing it right now because I'm sort of off season, but I really try to. Hey, it's my wife, Kathy. Yeah. I really try to be consistent. So I try to follow a weekly schedule and basically just to do sort of all of the events in some form or another every week.
Yeah.
And so I end up training about an hour a day.
Okay.
And then so I also like to do a lot of speed drills. So I'll just take a deck of cards, and instead of actually memorizing it, I'll just go through and see the images, but not actually memorize.
Right.
And I just like to do that just for, I think that's been a big help to me, is just trying to push myself doing those faster and faster, and just sort of getting my system really kind of, moving really quickly.
Right.
So I like to do a little bit, maybe like 10, 15 minutes of speed drills, sort of 45, 50 minutes of like actual events, just like on memo camp, stuff like that, or either memo camp or on paper, mostly memo camp, but before the competitions, usually paper.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and just like, honestly, my schedule or my training didn't really change. Like by the time, it was midsummer, I had kind of been locked into the same training schedule that I basically followed up till December.
Yeah.
And I just did my best to, every time I came into a session, just to try to beat my best. I'm not really one of those people who plays it safe or like goes for safe runs. I just kind of go for it every single time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, that's not necessarily the best thing. It can be debated, but
yeah,
that's what I like to do. It keeps it fun for me.
Yeah.
And then I sort of, I'm not sure where I'm going with that. But
yeah, so you train, it's a consistent training for you, and it's not necessarily that you put in 8+ hours a day training. Maybe you might on some days, I don't know.
Yeah, the way I do it is, so like I said, I have a schedule, and maybe I'll do like, a shorter event, like an XMT type style event in the morning, maybe 1 or 2 of those, and then like, maybe a little longer one, like a 5-minute event or a 15-minute in the afternoon, 1 or 2 of those. And that's basically it every day. And so I kind of break it up throughout the day.
Right.
So I'm not like, it doesn't feel like I'm putting in all this time. It's just sort of like every, hour or 2, I just kind of do a little bit of this or that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. So that's, as far as training, you just you're consistent with it. That's it. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. Be consistent with it, and space it out as well. Don't do like an entire competition in like a few hours, right? Don't do all 10 disciplines in like a matter of hours.
Yeah, like I said, things sort of at the World Championship just kind of worked out perfectly for me. I don't, I just got lucky because I didn't, I definitely don't think I really trained like someone who thought they were, going to win, because I didn't think I was going to win. Yeah. Like, I didn't even do sort of a full mock championship. Really? I didn't do like, the exact events you do on one day and, the second day. I just sort of was practicing them, like I said, on this weekly schedule.
Yeah.
But that was it.
Wow. That's incredible. And man, if that little, well, it was a little, but you still trained. But if that type of training style got you the competition, I wonder what like actually devoting 10 hours a day to this, if that would have changed it, or maybe would have, maybe wouldn't have. But so now let's talk about how you actually you've been to. I met you a few years back. It was 2014, I think, or I saw you up on stage at the USA Memory Championship. So, what drove you to want to get into this? Because there's different types of people. There's like individuals like myself. I got into this because my memory was horrible, so I wanted to fix it, right? And then there's people that have really good memory. They do really well in school, and they just want to learn this to get an extra edge. Or there's people that just want to compete, right? So what was your story like? How did you get into this? How did you discover it? What was your motivating factor for that?
Yeah, so that's, basically, I got into it just kind of plain and simple because I watched Joshua Forrest's TED Talk.
Okay.
And, I'd always kind of been like, I'd always done well in school. I didn't think that my memory was that bad, but like in college, there were times when I was sort of just like, damn, I wish I could, I could have remembered that. Like, I just sort of felt like I was my memory was sort of weak in certain ways. I'm not, I can't even remember why, ironically, but so for whatever reason, I watched it at the time, and it really just kind of like struck me as just really interesting, something that I could, really go after.
Yeah.
And so I watched that TED Talk, I read his book, and then sort of, I can't even, like I said, really explain what I was thinking, but I just was like immediately like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna like train and just see where it goes. I originally, so like I said, I sort of got into it because it's sort of school related stuff. I wanted to get, use the techniques as a student.
Right.
And so that was like my kind of whole entry was just, okay, I'm not, maybe I'm not going to worry about competition so much. I'm going to try to use it in school.
Exactly.
And then it sort of flipped, as I kind of kept moving forward, it sort of flipped for me, and I didn't really use it in school at all. But I did, want to compete, and I was like, you know, getting faster at cards and numbers and yada yada yada, and that was motivating just in itself, not even because of the applications.
Right.
So that was all really exciting. And then sort of, you know, more recently, like in the last few years, I guess I've been doing this 3 years now, but like in the last year and a half or so, I sort of kind of finally made the transition back into school, and using it in school. And it, you know, there's definitely a learning curve for using memory techniques in school. Like it, you know, lots of people make great videos about, you know, here's how you can use a memory palace to do this, or to, you know, memorize a list of words or whatever. But there's not a whole lot out there really about, like, you know, here's like an actual real life example of me, you know, memorizing some sort of, you know, notes from, you know, exam notes or whatever.
Right.
And so, you know, it wasn't that easy for me to sort of, you know, get up a certain level of skill with memory techniques to use them effectively in school. And so I sort of gave up a few times before finally figuring out some tricks.
Right.
So now I use them all the time, which is great. They're really helpful.
Awesome.
But yeah, I guess getting back to the memory sports stuff, I started in March of 2013. That was kind of when I first watched the, you know, TED Talk, like I said. And then basically the first time I competed was a year later at the USA Memory Championship. And by that time, I really had no idea how I was going to do. I had been training a lot, and I felt pretty good. I felt like I could match up with some people in certain events. But I didn't really know what to expect. And I think I definitely got lucky in some ways, because I ended up getting second,
This is awesome.
which sort of, which blew my mind. I mean, I didn't know whether I was going to get like second or 15th or whatever. You know, I didn't really know, but that definitely, just being able to, you know, getting lucky enough to get second definitely was a huge motivating factor for just continuing to do it and getting more excited about it.
Because then at that point it was like it was a confirmation that this works, right?
Say that again. Sorry, I kind of cut out a little bit.
At that point it was like kind of a confirmation that this actually works for you, right?
Yeah. There was sort of like, you know, probably like a lot of other memory people, like I would have like nightmares, right, of like doing like numbers, and then it just like looking back and being like, oh, I don't remember a thing.
Right,
like, did this system actually work? Was it just all a dream? Like, did it not?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, and then
I've had that a few times.
It worked. You know, when I was doing the competition, it like things were coming back to me, like it was working well. So that was like a nice confirmation. Yeah.
Because it's different. You can train and you can get really high scores. You can break all the world records in training when you're at your home by yourself, you know, headphones on, nobody's bothering you. But then you get to a competition, you got the people, you know, looking at you. You have cameras, like at the USA competition, they have cameras. Literally, they'll televise these competitions there. You know, the pressure's on at that point. The pressure's on, so you have to perform under pressure. So it's a little different than just training at home. So yeah, I know exactly, you know, that feeling of, man, this is awesome. It's working at home. I can do this at home. But, you know, does it translate when I'm under pressure? And for you, it did, you know. So once that was confirmed that it works, then you went on just a rampage. You started really stepping up your systems, and, you know, and you found training partners. I know that you teamed up with Lance, and you guys were just all the time going, you know, back and forth, helping each other out. So what do you think is, you know, to the viewers, how important is it to find somebody to attach to and to really like drive this hard? Because for the most part, you know, when we learn this, and I'll get, you know, a little bit more into this as far as how you actually learn the techniques. But, you know, when we learn this, we're by ourselves, right? We're by ourselves and we're training. So, you know, what's the importance of actually teaming up with somebody and going and, you know, communicating with each other to improve your, you know, your training?
Yeah, I think, I think it's really important. Right. I spent the first year basically sort of in the dark in terms of my training. I was just me doing my thing. You know, I went on, you know, I was on Memo Camp, so I was looking at other people's scores. Yeah. I was on artofmemory.com, you know, sometimes talking to people, but you know, that's definitely, it's not quite the same, you know, doing that versus really kind of talking to somebody in a conversation and talking through things. So I think it's definitely like really, when you have somebody to talk to, it's really makes things much more motivating. Yeah. Because you want to beat them, they want to beat you. and you just like, I feel like a lot of the stuff with memory sports, like with anything really, it's just about like breaking those mental barriers. You know what I mean? Like, memory athletes today are memorizing stuff that like, maybe 4 times more than the world records back in the 90s, or even 2000s. Like, it's just, people, and it's not like at that time they were like, oh, there's so much more potential out there. They probably thought they were kind of reaching the peak too. But, it's really about breaking those mental barriers. I feel like like last year I was able to do like over 1,200 digits in 15 minutes. Like, there's no way I would have thought that I could have done that like 3 years ago. There's no way. Exactly. Even 2 years ago when I like already had been training a lot. Like, it's just, you see other people do it, and especially when you can talk to them and see what they're thinking and stuff. Yeah. It's huge for being able to break those barriers.
Yeah. So find a, for those watching, man, find somebody to attach to, whether it's through video or phone calls or just texting or messaging. Find somebody to attach to and really push each other to go after it, man, because you see the results there. Now, so you saw the video, you saw Josh is actually a former USA memory champion as well. He was a journalist. He got into this. He saw it one year and he's like, oh, I want to try it. And then he won one of the competitions. So what were the books? What were the videos? What were the things that actually taught you the systems?
Yeah. So real quick first, I want to say, like, after I won the world championship, I was saying I was like having a hard time like wrapping my head around it and just like what it was. And then like I think the next day or next 2 days or whatever, I got an email from Josh.
Oh, no way.
Like saying congrats. And then I was just like, I think that was one of the things, like looking back, that I was just like kind of like, oh, like they really that's when it sort of hit me, like that it was a big thing for me. Man.
Yeah, because he was the guy that started this for you.
This is the guy that like got me into it, like talking to me, it just was kind of like, but yeah. So I watched that TED Talk, read the book. He doesn't really he talks about PAO and whatever, but he doesn't go into a lot of details. And I was really kind of like most, a lot of people getting into it, really kind of craving examples and details. Right. And so I listened to Quantum Memory Power by Dominic O'Brien.
Good one.
Who's like an 8-time world memory champion. And he goes into a lot more specifics on like actually how to do it. Obviously talks about his Dominic system, the ways he makes images for numbers and cars and stuff, how he memorizes names. Some more concrete stuff. So that was the next thing I did. Then I sort of wanted like a second opinion kind of thing. So I listened to Ron White's Memory in a Month program, which is also kind of a similar thing. And so got a few more ideas from there. So I don't know if you can tell, but I like listen. I don't like reading that much, like on paper. I like listening to stuff all the time. Right. Just like when I'm, around the house, like cleaning dishes or whatever, I like to listen to stuff. So I listen to those things. Yeah. And I listened to Moonwalking with Einstein on audiobook. It's like a random tangent, but yeah. So those were kind of the first 3 things I did. I did use artofmemory.com a lot as well, because people are always talking about systems and things like that. Yeah. So I was like really into reading a lot of what people had to say there. That was mainly it. And then I sort of decided like that I kind of decided that I wanted to do PAO at the time. Yeah. Just because they talked about like how it was, Josh talks about how it's it like kind of forces you to do to be creative. And I sort of, I don't know, that kind of clicked with me, I guess. So I like that. And so I just, I used a 2-digit PAO for numbers, and just a 1-digit or 1 card PAO thing for cards. Yeah. And that was just like my first kind of system that I used to get going.
Now, your system has definitely evolved since then, right? You don't use PAO at all. I know there's some top guys that still use PAO, and it works for them. However, what's your current system, and then what made you want to switch over to your current system?
Right. So my current system is, for numbers, I use a 3-digit system now. So before it was 2-digit PAO. Now it's just 3-digit non-PAO. It's just 1 unique image for every 3 digits. It's always the same. Yeah.
Now, real quick, I'm sorry. Let me just explain to those that are watching or listening that have no clue what PAO is. So, person, action, object. You use a person. So, let's say you have a 6-digit number, right? First 2 digits will be the person. Second 2 digits will be the action, and then the third 2 digits will be the object. So then you create a story out of that. But yeah, that's what people use as well. But you're saying that you use a 3 digits, so just one image for 3 digits. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. So, right. So I took a lot of the people, like all the people that were in my person action object system, I brought into this new system. Right. And so it's sort of a similar mix. It's like about 1/3 people, okay, but then 2/3, objects. Okay. And so, so that's my numbers. Cards is sort of similar, in that it overlaps with my number system, but it's now a 2-card system instead of 1. So instead of 1 image for every 1 card, it's 1 image for every 2 cards now. And so for anybody who's familiar with the Ben system, that's just kind of the standard 2-card system. Yeah. Mine is similar to that, but it's basically half the size. Yeah. So his system is 2,704 images. Mine is only 1,352. Yeah. And so I have to sort of do some tricks there to to be able to figure out which cards it is, because it's a smaller system, yeah, but it's still 2 cards for 1 image. Yeah. For that. And like I said, I don't know if I said this, but there's a big overlap with my card system and number system. So basically every one of my number images is also in my card system, and then my card system has 350 something more images, yeah, than numbers. Cool. And then and then for binary, for instance, it just comes straight out of my number system. I just convert each three digits of binary into a regular decimal, right, number. Just read it that way. I do actually do the way I do it is I do it in blocks or like 3x3 matrices. Mm-hmm. So it'll be like 0, 0, 1 would be let's see, like a 4 for me, and then I'll read the next 3 and then the next 3, and that'll become 1 3-digit image. Got it. So I read 3 kind of rows at a time.
Wow. Wait, so you don't do it across? You do it like
So I'll do like the a 9-digit chunk like here, and then this one, and then that chunk, and then that chunk.
Interesting.
And this,
I did not know that.
You take a chunk of 90.
Right.
At a time. Instead of 30 in each line.
Cool. And then I'll put, for those watching, I'll post a picture of that here, so you guys can see kind of what we're saying. Yeah.
So to be clear, like I'm not very creative in terms of systems. Like I stole,
borrowed.
Like every part of the system is stolen in some form or fashion from somebody. Yeah. So like that 3-digit block thing, like Johannes Mallow did that for a while before me. Lance did that before me also, and so I was working a lot with Lance. He had already been doing that, and so when I first got into binary, mm-hmm, that I knew he was doing really well with it, so I was confident using that system. Yeah. And like I said, for the card system that I mentioned, that's pretty much stolen. Also, like a combination of Lance and Johannes. Yeah. I pretty much steal everything from them.
You're a thief, man. You stole your way to a championship. Nah, but listen, for those watching, listen, that's what you have to do. They say model success. Model what works. Don't reinvent the wheel. If something's working, model it and work at it. Work at it until you can perfect it, like Alex has done here. So it's not necessarily stealing. You're just seeing what works and saying, okay, let me just apply that here. Why spend hours upon hours trying to figure something new out if this is working, right? So that's right, a great strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back, like I basically transitioned from the PAO system over to these new systems after my first competition. So I did the US one, and then I was like, okay, this is a good time. If I'm gonna switch, let's just do it now, get it done early, so I can really focus on the new systems. Yeah. And so I spent basically about a month just kind of like agonizing over what I was gonna do. I didn't know exactly, and so I spent time like on artofmemory.com, mm-hmm, talking to Lance, like just researching the different things. And eventually just kind of arrived at these things I've been talking about as like, what I thought would be the best for me. Right. A big part of it really was I, like I said before, and I really idolized like people like Johannes, and I knew, I read somewhere, I think it was on a memorysports.com interview, that he said he practiced like about 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, if this guy can like freaking dominate like the sport, training 30 minutes a day, like I'll have what he's having.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so I mod like I said, most of my stuff is modeled off what Johannes does. Hit the card system, numbers, binary, lots of it's very similar. I mean, obviously there are different nuances, but general idea is pretty similar. And so
now to be completely transparent, this 30 minutes to an hour a day training, that's obviously for those new to the sport. That's after creating, spending hours creating your systems, right? It's not necessarily like 30 minutes in creating images for the first 20 digits of numbers. That's after you've already spent hundreds or tons of hours in developing the images and everything. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so I spent, like I said, I spent about a month after. So the competition I think was in March. I spent like all of April just trying to figure out what systems I was going to do. I finally decided on something. I was kind of toying with just some different things, but that was what I picked. And then May, June. It basically took me like at least a few weeks to make the system.
Exactly. Yeah.
If not the whole month of May, maybe a little bit of June. And then after that, I was just I didn't even really memorize things for like a really long time. I just was trying to drill the system, make sure I could see the images quickly.
Yeah.
And by the time it took me, like I said, I made it in May-ish, and then I wasn't even as good as I was, at the USA competition in March. I didn't even get back to that level until around, December or something like that. That would be December of 2014.
Yeah.
So, and then, by the time the XMT sort of rolled around, I was feeling pretty good. And then by the time, in the months after that, leading up to the World Championship, things were just kind of really starting to click and feeling really good. And so, yeah, that's basically how it went down.
So a quick example, we'll wrap it up in a little bit, but a quick example. This has been a great interview. Thanks so much, Alex. You've definitely given a lot of value to the people out there. So a quick example. So when you see a chunk of numbers, let's go a little bit more into like an actual, say if I give you a 6-digit number right now, how would you go about memorizing that number, right? So like, let's say, I don't know, I'll just come up with it. So 329, okay? So 329, 470. What are your images? How would you memorize that? And yeah, give us an example of how you would do that.
Right. So for my numbers, right, it's based on the major system. Mm-hmm. So, basically major system, equates numbers to certain like letters basically or sounds. Yeah. So, I just did the straight major system, didn't make any changes. So 329, 3 is like an M sound, 2 is an N sound, and then 9 is like a P or a B sound. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that kind of became Monopoly. Mm-hmm. So 329 is like this little car from the little car from Monopoly, the little little piece. Yeah. So that's my image for 329, and then same thing for 4. You said 470. Right. 4 is an R sound, 7 is a K sound, and then 0 is a Z or a S sound. And so my image for 470 is Marshall Erickson from How I Met Your Mother, the TV show.
Okay.
So it comes from the Ricks, or the 470 Rickson. Yeah. So I would I always place 2 images per locus.
Right. So
when I'm memorizing numbers, I'll take 6 digits at a time, just 2 different images in the location, move to the next one. And so I would see something in the form of like a Monopoly car sort of rolling at Marshall Erickson. And then, he kind of has a connotation of being this big lumbering guy. He's like 6'4". Yeah. So I probably would imagine him like sort of acting like a giant and just sort of like swatting the
little car
out of the way, something like that.
That's funny, man. And then on location, so these mental locations, you already have a predetermined like journey system, right? So you have these journeys created in your mind, and then you just store these 2 objects per location along a route. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, cool. Yeah, pretty same as no magic there. Same as how all the memory athletes do it.
Awesome. So you guys go. For those of you that want to learn how Alex does it, how he broke a world record, that's pretty much how he does it. He has a system, predetermined images for numbers, and then he just creates these stories, vivid images along a route in his mind, and then when he wants to recall it, he just goes back and reviews that. So basic system. So now, what are your go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, for the numbers record, the hour numbers, like, it's just kind of, I thought it was kind of funny because this house is is the journey that I used to do that.
Oh, no way.
So I just, fun fact.
Yeah, so that's what we do. We create these. That's probably, is that your best journey or your best location system? Your house?
No, not really actually. This is I'm at med school right now, so this is like kind of a newer house or newer place for me.
Yeah.
So I'd say my best one is probably still my like original childhood home. That was the first journey I ever made, and that was probably the best one still.
That's interesting, huh? Like the same for me. I think it's probably the same for everyone. The first like journey that we created is probably our best one, just because we use it so much, especially early on.
Yeah, I've gone through it like I don't know how many times, probably thousands.
Right. So, what are your future goals? We have the XMT coming up. You're already qualified. Now we're doing the qualifiers, and you just broke a world record unofficially. But what are your goals for the XMT? Are you going to compete also in any international memory competitions this year? And then also moving forward, what are some of your top goals that you want to accomplish?
Yeah. So, in terms of like the XMT, for instance, I don't really have any expectations at this point. I really just want to do the best I can.
Yeah.
Making it back to the top 4 would be great.
Yeah.
So just go there, have fun. It's always great being in California, being in San Diego. In terms of just like competitions, I do. I still want to compete a lot. Like the only one I have kind of lined up right now is the XMT, and then obviously or hopefully whenever the USA competition is,
right.
And then hopefully the World Championship again. Which I guess is going to be in Singapore this year.
Right.
But that was kind of surprising. And I'd love to go to some more, international ones. I wouldn't say I'm flush with cash right now, so I probably can't just be like jet setting all over the place. But I'd like to go to as many as I can.
Yeah.
Any chance to go to competitions is
if
fun.
you could go to one this year, like an international competition, which one would you want to go to? They have them in London, Germany, the Australia one, that Japanese open memory competition. Philippines is gonna have one. So which one are if you could choose one, which one would you lean towards?
That's a good question. I guess I would say. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I guess maybe like one of the German ones, just because they're like kind of they are older and like have more history.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, I don't really have any good reasons.
Yeah. The German one, yeah. I think I would. Yeah, I want to do some of the European ones. So.
Although I know the German ones, like I think they do the spoken numbers in German.
Really?
I think so. I've heard that before.
That'd be an interesting.
So maybe not. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's memory competition stuff. In terms of just like general memory stuff, I'm trying to get more into like, teaching and kind of doing some coaching and like speaking stuff like that, just for general memory stuff. Not really about competitions, but more about focused on learning and using memory techniques in school.
Right.
It's really kind of where my main interest is at right now.
I've seen some of your videos that you posted, and they're very informative. You guys can all check that out. I think you changed it. It's mullenmemory.com. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm kind of going into this, like having this sort of brand of Mullen. It's called Mullen Memory. And it's just sort of, so mullenmemory.com. It's just sort of focused. I'm really trying to focus it on, like I said, memory techniques for learning, for school, stuff like that. Not as much about, obviously there are lots of great applications for memory techniques, but really not as much about, presentations or names. Those are, like I said, great things. But this one's, I'm trying to focus on school learning. So yeah, check that out. It's mullenmemory.com. There's some tutorials you can watch, and I just go into the basics and everything, and
Awesome.
yeah, check it out.
I'll post links everywhere here in the video, down below, links below, so you guys can all check that out. His Facebook, all that, the works. But real quick, we'll end on this. Just a fun little, let's get off of memory for a little bit. Just a few random questions just off the top. So if, here's what, if you could, if there's a time machine that just popped up right there, right next to you right now, and then you can go back in time, any time period, right? And then you can visit somebody from the past. Maybe somebody that was influential in your life, maybe through reading books or whatnot, or watching videos. Who would what time period would that be? Who would that be? And why? We have a lot of greats. We have the Albert Einsteins, right? We have presidents. We have, inventors, scientists.
On one, sort of more, academic level, I definitely want to go talk to, I'm going to give you, a bunch of answers here, but, Jesus would be, a pretty big one because he's obviously a huge influential person.
Oh yeah.
Einstein would be an awesome one too. In terms of people who I would actually more want to go talk to, on not an academic, more just a personal enjoyment level. Yeah. I have a lot of let's see, maybe George Carlin. I really like comedy.
Interesting.
So I think it'd be fun to talk to him, for instance.
Yeah. What would be a burning question you would want to ask him?
We did have him up and just just the whole experience of getting into it and what he learned and stuff like that.
Right. That's good because I learned a lot from biographies, learning from people that went through struggles and went through all that, the entire journey, and found successes. So that would be a really good question. Just ask him about what his whole journey was about. So that'll be awesome. Awesome to talk about. Cool. Yeah. So now, what's your what's your favorite food, man? What do you like to eat?
My favorite food?
Yeah.
I like, this is kind of random, I guess, but I really like pie.
Pie?
I'm a really big pie person. I would much rather have a birthday pie than a birthday cake.
Really?
I don't know, I just like pie, cherry pie, blueberry pie. You can give me a pie and I'm happy. So
cool.
That's probably.
All right. Favorite song or favorite artist, musician,
Right now, I'm listening to a lot of Andrew Bird. Do you know who that is?
I have no
idea. Yeah, so he's I kind of, I just kind of like his vibe, and he's sort of I don't know if folk rock is the right word for it, but it's something sort of like that. It's sort of mellow. So that's the kind of music I tend to listen to. Not a whole lot of real intense pop or hip hop. I just kind of sort of listen to mellow stuff. So
sure.
Yeah, that's probably my choice. Yeah.
Cool. Favorite book?
When I was a kid, I really liked this book called The Sight, which was about these wolves. It's not a very good example, but I don't know. I really liked that book when I was a kid. So if you asked me then, I definitely would have said my favorite book was The Sight. More recently, I read this book a year ago or so about the Facebook stuff. It's Mark Zuckerberg. It was the book that the movie The Social Network was based on.
Got it. Yeah.
It's called The Accidental Billionaires. So in the last year or so, I think that was probably the book I enjoyed reading the most. I thought it was really interesting.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And then to close this out, what's your favorite quote? And if you don't have one, you can make one up right now.
This is super cliche, but I really like Nike's just do it
Simple.
Thing.
Yeah.
I honestly think about that a lot. I know it's the most overused hackneyed thing there is, but yeah, I think it's great.
Just do it. There it is.
Just do it.
Closing words from the first American, and we get listen, that's a huge accomplishment. There's been several Americans that have gone out there to the World Memory Competition, and you're the first ever to actually take home the gold, which is amazing and incredible. So we had the first ever American World Memory Champion right here with us today, and he closed it out. I'm just saying, just do it. Listen, if you want to get into this sport, if you haven't started yet, just do it. If you are already in it and you've been doing it for a while and you want to take your game to another level, Alex says, just do it, right? So, or if you're at the top and you want to just start breaking records left and right, just do it. Just go out, train, and listen to what Alex said here today. And yeah, Alex, anything else you want to share with the people out there?
Not really. I mean, thanks for for asking me to do this. I'm happy to do it. It's been a fun conversation. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, I think memory techniques are like fantastic for, for just, exercising your brain, like using them in school, super helpful, not to shamelessly plug my own stuff, but if you want to check it out, check out my, like short tutorial series, help kind of get you started if you're interested. So, yeah.
MullenMemory.com. Check that out. He has a lot of YouTube videos as well. I'm sure you're going to be putting out a lot more videos out there. Very informative. Check that out. Highly endorse that. MullenMemory.com. Cool. All right. So that's it. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.
All right. Thank you, Louis. See ya.